Alright, so we're back with yet another video. Today I'm going to put different AI coding editors to the test. So we'll have a look at Windsurf, Cursor, Cline, and Ada. And by the way, really, Cline and Ada are not really IDEs, similar to Cursor or Windsurf. They're really just command line interfaces or command line tools. Yet they also possess the ability of writing whole applications. So this is why I'm going to show you how to set them up and also how to use them. Now, as for Cursor and Windsurf, I'm probably not going to walk you through the installation process since it's as easy as downloading a program, right? Just go through the setup process and you will be in the main window, so to speak. Now, the prompt I'm going to use is the following. So we create a personal expense tracker web app with the following features: backend using Express.js and SQLite, frontend using React and Tailwind CSS. Features needed: we want to add new expenses with amount, category, and date. We want to view monthly spending summary with total, simple bar chart showing spending by category, ability to delete expenses, basic form validation, store everything in a local SQLite database, and the UI should be clean and minimal, and we don't need any authentication. Now we'll start with Cursor. So head over to the website and download the app. And then the only thing you have to do is really to let you walk through the setup process. Now, after you've installed Cursor, you will see this window. As you can see, I've already opened the personal expense tracker. You can just click File, Open Folder, create the folder where you want the project to be saved, and then click Open. Now, if you don't see the composer, you hit Command and I on your keyboard, or Control and I if you're on Windows. Then I will simply go ahead and paste the prompt, and we also enabled the agent modes. In the last update, I think it's 0.43, Cursor has added agent mode to, well, its features, which means that it's similar to Windsurf, right? It can now execute commands inside of the composer, which is pretty neat. I've seen so many videos where people basically let multiple agents run on their system and they go grab a coffee, and when they come back, they have a finished app, which is pretty nuts. So let's hit enter, and Cursor should now go ahead and create all of the different files for us. As you can see, we need a backend folder and a frontend folder. It first creates the backend folder, which says the command basically says make directory backend with a source folder, and then we create a package.json file, and we also create a frontend folder with a package.json file. So we run the command. As you can see, we now have both folders, and we start to set up the backend. So let's do it a bit more work. I will do my best to explain everything that is happening. Now, essentially, the package.json just defines how we can start the app. It also lists all the dependencies and does some other config stuff. Now, let's create the backend server with the SQLite database setup. So if we have a look at backend, we should see the backend server. Now, as you can see, it is using Express, just like we told it to. And we have the different routes. So we can post to expenses. We can also get all expenses. We can delete a specific expense, as you can see here with the ID parameter. And we can also summarize the expense for a given month. And now we create the main app inside of our front end, I believe. So let me quickly check what is going on in the composer. Now let's update the front end React application. First, let's create the necessary front end files. As you can see here, it's writing the app.js file with the API URL, which is currently running on port 3001. And it even goes ahead and writes the readme file. And it should be done any minute. Okay, yeah. So if we click accept all, and now let's do cd. So we first have to install all of the dependencies, right? So we'll do npm I. Now this will install all the backend dependencies. Now we run the server. This should work without any issues. As you can see, it created the database file expenses.db. And in a different terminal window, we cd into front end. We also install all of the dependencies, and then we'll start the front end server, and we'll run npm start. Okay, so we have an issue. Could not find a required file. So let's just take that error and run it in the composer. We need to create the index.html file in the front end public directory. Let me help you. Now let's try do that again. npm start. Now the development server is running. Let's have a look at how the app looks like. So pretty neat, simple, but let's see, we'll do 1200 category entertainment. We'll also do, I don't know, maybe the, okay, so I can't use the calendar icon. Usually I would have expected that I can click the calendar and then a drop down appears, but let's just go with this and we'll do camera equipment maybe, and we'll do add expense. Now this works. Now let's head back over to the terminal. Let me make this a bit bigger because I actually want to have a look at the database. Now, as you can see, I'm already inside of my backend, right? We want to run the SQLite 3 server with the expenses database. And now we want to select everything from expenses. And as you can see here, we have entertainment, camera equipment, and if we add something else, so let's do 50 again, let's do food, let's do meat. We'll do this and we'll run the command again. Now, as you can see, we have both elements inside of our database, which is pretty neat. Okay, so let's have a look at the backend code. Now, as you can see, well, since it's just a small app with basic operations, we have everything in one file. Usually you don't want to have all of your backend logic in one file, right? You want to have a better separation of concerns. Also, the app currently, everything is in one file. Again, it's not really a big deal since it's a fairly simple app with only one screen. So we don't have too many lines of code, only like, 224 lines. But as you can imagine, web apps become pretty complicated pretty quickly. Now, to be fair, I haven't specified the separation of concerns inside of my prompt, right? I just told it to create a backend and a front end, and it really delivered on that. So we have a backend folder, front end folder, so we have some kind of separation of concerns, and the app is working on the almost first try, right? The only thing that was missing was the index.html file. But other than that, we have a very basic full stack application in under 10 minutes. So this section is running for like 9 minutes now. And now I would say we'll head over to Windsurf and do the same. Okay, now we're in Windsurf, and you might think, this looks pretty similar to Cursor, and you'd be right, because Windsurf is also a VS Code fork, which means it uses the basic VS Code under the hood, really. So they just changed the styling a bit and also implemented their business logic, right? What's pretty neat about Windsurf, though, is that we have the cascade feature, which is similar to Cursor's now most up-to-date agent feature, where you can also run commands in the terminal, and basically everything runs fully automatically, and the only thing that you have to do is enter a prompt and then wait until you have a finished product, right? Now, of course, as with Cursor, this doesn't work for a very complex web application, so you won't be able to tell it things like, I want to create the next Facebook. Please go ahead and do so. This shit won't work, okay? Because it's just too complex. You have to connect too many moving parts. But just to see as a direct comparison how those apps work with these prompts, I will again copy paste the prompt here. As you can see, it's the same prompt: create a personal expense tracker web app with backend, front end, and so on. And we'll make sure that you have toggled the write mode, because in chat mode, well, it only gives you the code on the right in the chat window, and you have to manually paste it into your folder structure, so to speak, and it won't be able to write any files. And now the only thing we have to do is to hit enter. And by the way, I'm using Claude 3.5 Sonnet for all of the tasks and all of the different apps, right? Even in Cline and Ada, I have to set it up, and don't worry, I will show you how you can install these things. And they also have a pretty good documentation and show you how you can do it. But for now, let's see what Windsurf is coming up with. Now it sees that we don't have any files inside of our root directory, and says we're starting with a clean slate. Let's create the project structure. And now, as you can see, it runs npx, which really is a package manager and helps you set up the React app. So we'll hit accept for this command. And by the way, it also shows you what it's doing right now, as you can see here in stdout, right? So right now we're creating the client or the React app. It already created the server.js file, so it didn't put it inside of a backend folder, which is, well, I guess not really that big of a deal. but it's just different from what Cursor has done, right? Now, let's create the React frontend using create React app, as we've already seen. And now let's install additional dependencies for the front end. So we need Tailwind CSS, auto prefixer, and post CSS, which is essentially for running Tailwind CSS properly. We need Axios for making requests to our backend API, right? And we also need React charts. So those dependencies look quite similar to what Cursor gave us. Now we'll initialize Tailwind. Let's do accept. Now we have the Tailwind config file. As you can see, we also need to update the configuration. And guys, to be honest, those tools are not always following best practices, right? Sometimes they put, as I've said, everything in one file and don't really think about separation of concerns. But it's mind-boggling to me, really, that we're living in a time where someone that has minimal coding experience can, I don't know, just write a plain, simple English prompt and end up with a full stack application. It's crazy, right? And this is just the beginning. I mean, those tools are only becoming better and better by the day. And I think in, I don't know, maybe a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, nobody really knows. Once we hit AGI, everyone will probably be able to generate web applications, right? So now we need to install the backend dependencies. So let's do that. Now let's start the backend server. Let's see. We're also running NodeMon. We get an error. Again, because something is already running on port 5000. So let's see if Tailwind is able to resolve this. But it doesn't look like it. So we probably won't be able to do anything since, okay, whoa, yeah. Okay, so apparently we get quite a lot of issues. So I like the design a bit more than what Cursor gave us, but we probably won't be able to do anything. So let's see. I mean, this dropdown is pretty nice, but we can't use it apparently. We only see food. We can't use the date picker either. So let's go with 27th of November and let's do good food. So we probably won't be able to add something. Nope, it doesn't work. So let's quickly close this and says, okay, I've created complete personal expense tracker web application, yada yada. It's running on localhost 5000. Let's copy that, paste it here. So apparently I get an error when I try to start the backend. It says port 3001 is already in use, but port 5001 and port 5000 were also already in use. So could you please fix this issue? As you can see, there's already running a node process in the background. I wonder if that's the same that was already running from the other app. I don't know. I thought maybe they would kill the process once we close the other web app, but I don't really know, to be honest. So let's kill the existing node process. And guys, by the way, you have to be careful if you don't really know what those commands mean, right? Because this is running on your actual OS, okay? So if you don't know what a specific command does, don't run it. Because maybe you run the wrong command and then your OS just breaks, okay? Don't do this. You want to understand what you're doing. So we'll do npm run dev again. And okay, I think because this is already running here. Okay, so let's kill this and also kill the command at the top where is it here? Okay, like so, and we'll also kill that one. And this should be it, right? Now let's see if we can run this application again. So we'll do npm run dev. Now this works. We're connected to the SQLite database. And now we open another terminal window and we go into the client. And we want to do npm start. Yes, let's run it. Let's run it on a different port. Okay. Okay, but we still get this error, which means something is not right with the props that we're handing over to bar. Okay, so let's put that here. But I still want to check if this is working. So let's see. We'll do 50. I still can't choose the other category than the food category. Let's do 2611. Let's do, I don't know, food. So we can add something. So this works. And let's see what Windsurf came up with. The main changes I made fix the TypeScript errors are, okay, so we'll hit accept all. And let's have a look at the expense form. So we have food, transportation, entertainment, shopping, utilities, and healthcare. So there is an error. So let's see. So the web application works. Unfortunately, I can't use the category drop down. So could you please have a look at, I want to look at the expense form TSX and fix it. By the way, let's kill those processes. Now, meanwhile, this is loading. We're going to head over to this. Let's see. We want to go to Windsurf and we want to run this. But we can add stuff to the database. So this works, which is nice. Let's see what it did. So I see the issue. We need to create the index. Oh, we are in Cursor. Okay. So as you can see, we can add stuff to the database, which is nice. If we head back over to Windsurf, we can see I've made the following changes to fix the form. So let's do accept all. And again, we'll run the backend server and we also run the front-end server. Let's make this a bit bigger. Now, we still can't use the drop-down, which is unfortunate. But can we delete stuff? Yes. If we have a look at the database now, let's see. Star from expenses. I always forget the colon thing. Okay, so now it's empty. And if we put something back in, let's see, 1,200. Let's leave it at food. Let's call it camera equipment though. Expense. Okay, this works. We also have the monthly spending by category, which is nice. And if we run this command again, so this works. Apparently it's not perfect, right? But I will leave it at that because we still have to look at the two other different tools. And again, guys, pretty neat, right? So full stack application with only one prompt and, well, a little bit of back and forth because I overlooked the fact that the processes were still running. And this is why I couldn't start them on the same port, right? So that's my bad. Now, let's kill this and now we'll head over to the Ada website and I'm going to show you how to install it. Now we're on the Ada website. As you can see, it's called ada.chat. Now you need to know a few things before you can run Ada. So first you have to know that it is a command line tool, which means you don't really have that fancy IDE kind of environment that you have with Windsurf or Cursor. Instead, you're working inside of the terminal. Okay, for those of you who've never worked inside of the terminal, it might look daunting, but I promise it's not. If you know a few basic commands and if you follow this installation process, you can get it up and running pretty quickly. Okay, so first of all, we want to head over to installing Ada. And as you can see here, you need two things. First of all, you need Python. And for that, to check if you have Python, you want to head over to your terminal and you want to type python-version. As you can see, I've currently installed Python 3.10.13. So this is well inside of the scope of these versions. And you also need to install Git. Now for that, you want to head over to google.com and you want to just search for Git and you will find it as the first result. Now, then you want to click on downloads and download the client, right? And you want to install this. And this is essentially all that you need to do. And now if we head back over to Ada, you will see that we also need the API keys. So we need the Claude 3.5 Sonnet API key. And for that, we have to head over to anthropic.console. You have to create an account and then you need to click create key, as you can see at the top right, and you will have to give it a name. In my case, I called it ada-chat and you will find this key. Now keep that modal open and then you want to head over to Ada once more and you want to run this command. Now I've already done it. So as you can see, it says requirement already satisfied. And then you will be able to run Ada by just typing the command Ada. But we need to do one more thing before this, right? So we need to copy that command here and we want to paste it. And we also need the key and we want to paste that here. And then it should say, okay, main model Claude 3.5 Sonnet and so on. Now, as you can see inside of Ada, you just want to paste the prompt that we've already used with Cursor and Windsurf and you want to hit enter. And then it says, I'll help you create a personal expense tracker web app. I'll break this down into steps and create the necessary files. And we'll basically give you a rundown of all the different files that it needs to create. So we have the package.json, the server file where we run the server logic. As you can see, we're using our famous port 5000, so we'll probably have to change some things later on. And now let's create the React front end. So it creates a client folder, the tailwind.config file, the app.js file. Now, one thing that I can see is that we are not using JSX. Okay, so we're writing plain vanilla JavaScript with React though, but this is something to note, right? Because Cursor and Windsurf were able to write JSX. But other than that, it looks pretty similar to what Windsurf was able to come up with. We also have expense summary, we have the expense list, we have the expense chart. And now, as you can see, let's set up the project and run it. First, install the backend dependencies, and now you will be prompted to basically create all of the files and run the commands. So we'll type y and y again for server, for tailwind.config, for index.css, and basically for all of the other files that we have seen at the top here. Okay, so and now we could run the shell commands npx create react app client, and we will do this because we still need the front end, right? Now, as you can see, it installs Heroicons, React, Axios, Chart.js, and basically all of the dependencies that we need to run Tailwind. Now it says create a Tailwind CSS config file, created post CSS config file, add command output to the chat. We'll go with yes. And now we could run the shell commands, but we won't do this. So we'll do no. And now we're back to Ada, and we will head over to Windsurf, and we will open the Ada project. And as you can see here, we have all of the files that Ada has created for us. So for example, the client with the source folder, we have the components, we have the app.js file. So as you can see, we're running on localhost. And now if we have a look at here, you can see that I think we can just run, what did it say? npm install, cd client, npm install, and then we need to run npm run dev. Okay, so we still need to cd into the client, and now we should be able to run this command. Now we probably get some errors because it says there's already something running on port 5000. Okay, so I had to do a few changes. As you can see here, it now says inside of the package.json file inside of the client that we want to run it on port 3001, right? Because before that, we tried to basically start the backend and the front end on the same port, which is 5010, but this obviously didn't work. Okay. Now, you will see that we get yet another error if we try to run npm run dev. It says could not find a required file, and this is the same issue as with Windsurf, right? So we need to create a public folder and a new file, call it index.html, and paste the contents here, as you can see. And now let's see if we've done everything correctly. I think we should have our app running, but we get yet another error. I think let me quickly push this a bit more to the side. You can see, okay, could not find a required file. Now you can work with Ada the same way as you can work with Windsurf and Cursor. So this is why we want to copy this error. We want to head over to Ada and say, okay, I tried to run the app with npm run dev, but I get the following error. And we want to paste that here. And now it should go ahead and resolve this issue for you. I see the issue. We're missing the index.js file in client-source directory. Let's create it. We also need to create an HTML template file. Now we've already done this, right? So we want to create the index.js file. Yes. And we also, yes, let's create the index.html file. Applied edit. Now, if we head over here, we should be able to see the index.js file, as you can see. And we also have the index.html file. And now we don't want to run the shell command inside of Ada. Instead, we want to head over here. And we want to run npm run dev. And now everything should work. And we should be able to see our server. Now, as you can see, it looks similar to what Cursor gave us, oddly enough. And we can use the dropdown. This time we'll choose 1200. We'll do entertainment. We can even use the date picker. So this is something that Windsurf and Cursor, I'm not quite sure if Cursor was able to do it or if Cursor has even implemented it. But let's do the 13th of November. Let's do camera equipment, and we'll do add expense. Now this worked. Looks nice. Let's do, I don't know, 50, and we'll do food. Let's grab us some fries. Obviously, it's a boatload of fries for $50. And maybe let's do the 21st. We'll add expense. So this works quite well, and it gets added to this graph chart in form of bars, which is nice. And just to see if it works, let's head over to the terminal, and I want to make this a bit bigger. so you guys can see it. We'll head over to our ADA project. And as you can see, we have the expenses.db. So we want to start our SQLite and we want to select everything from expenses to see. I always forget this thing. And now, as you can see, we will add this stuff to our database, which is pretty nice. And if we head over here and we delete this, let's do it like so. It gets deleted here. And if we run this command again, we only have one item in our database, which is pretty neat. Nice. Okay, so obviously we've ran into a few more issues with Ada, right? Because we had to manually add a few files with index.html, for example, at index.js. You can do it manually, but it's also possible to choose Ada and to let Ada do it for you. So this is neat. Now, the last thing that we have to test is Cline, and Cline works with VS Code. Okay, now we're in VS Code. First, you want to install Cline, right? So you want to open the extensions tab, just search for Cline. As you can see, it should be the first result. You click it, it should say install on your side. I've already done it. This is why it says disable. And now, as you can see, it kind of looks similar to the Cursor Composer or even to Windsurf's Cascade feature. The only difference is that we have it on the left, right? And now you might wonder how can we start it? And for that, we have to hit Command, Shift, and P. Or you can just simply click into the input field at the top. You want to enter a right arrow. And you want to just type Cline, and it should say Cline open in new tab. And then you can see that it will appear on the right side. Now, first what you have to do, you have to add your API key, okay? And it says, I can do all kinds of tasks thanks to the latest breakthrough in Claude 3.5 Sonnet's agentic coding capabilities and access to tools that let me create and edit files. Now, you can choose a API provider. Since we want to test all of the tools with Claude 3.5 Sonnet, we're going with Anthropic, and we need to head over to Anthropic console once more, and we want to create a new key. Select the default workspace, call it Cline, and we'll hit add, copy that key, head over here, paste it, and we'll want to click let's go. And now, as you can see, you have the chat window here, and we need to grab the prompt once more, and we'll have to paste it here, right? So as you can see, it's the same prompt, create a personal expense tracker web app with following features. So we'll hit enter. And now, as you can see, it makes a API request to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and you can see live what it's doing. So let's see, I'll help you create a personal expense tracker web app with the specified features. Let's break this app down into steps. First, we need to set up the project structure and initialize both the front end and the back end. So let's do save. Now it makes another API request. We need to run the command npm install. You can see it installed Course, Express, and SQLite. Now that we have the base dependencies installed, let's create the backend structure first. So this should look pretty similar to what Cursor and also Windsurf has given us, right? Let's wait until it's finished and then we'll have a look. Now again, we're running it on port 5000. Let's see if this will work without any issues. But we also can fetch the expenses. We can post to the expenses. As you can see here, we can delete a specific expense and also have the monthly overview of our expenses. Now we'll click save again. I like that you can see how much the API request did cost. So as you can see, 0.04 cent. Now we need to create the front end. So we want to run the command npx create React app front end. As you can see, it even goes ahead and creates the folder outside of the backend folder. As you can remember, this was where Cursor has made a mistake. Now let's give it a few more seconds. Let's have a look at the front end. And as you can see, it even goes ahead and uses TypeScript, which is something different because Cursor went ahead, I think it used JSX. Ada went ahead and coded everything in vanilla JavaScript. So this is neat. Now Cline wants to execute this command. So, okay, we need to install the charts library, Tailwind, post CSS and everything. So let's do this. We need to initialize Tailwind. And keep in mind, this is a free solution, right? So you don't have to pay $20 to run it. Cursor costs $20, Windsurf costs $10. This is a free solution. The only thing that you have to pay is the API cost, right? Same with Ada. So for those of you who are a bit more tech savvy or like to learn how you can work with it, this might be a viable solution since, well, it's much cheaper than using Cursor. So while this is running, let's head back over here, and we want to head over to Cursor. Now, if you look at their pricing, you have to pay $20 per month, but you only get 500 premium requests, right? And if you want to have unlimited requests, you pay $40 per month. If we have a look at Windsurf, let's see, Windsurf, where is it? I think it's here. And you look at the pricing, it's a bit more competitive, right? You have a free trial where you can test it, I think, for 30 days, not just 14. And it only costs $10 per month, and you can get unlimited access to GPT-4o, Claude Sonnet. So in terms of cost, this might be more attractive to many of you. But if you want to have it even cheaper, you maybe want to give Cline or Ada a go. Let's save this. Okay, I mean, as far as the code quality goes, I'm really impressed with Cline so far, because, I mean, it thinks about proper best practices when it comes to creating the project setup, but also using types, for example, as we were able to see, I think here, it creates the interfaces for the expense and the monthly summary, which is really good because it follows coding best practices. You always want to have type safety in your app, right? So let's do save one more time. So right now we've paid like 33 cents for this software so far, which is all right, I guess, 33 cents. So let's create the expense form component. Yes. So I wonder if there are any issues with the internet connection. No. Okay. It just took a bit longer. It should only take a couple more seconds because I think we only have the three components, right? Expense chart, expense form, expense list. It's created everything without any issues so far. And now, what's the next step? Because I'm pretty excited to see how the design will look like. It even has this kind of agentic workflow, right? Because we've already had this app.tsx file, but after implementing all of the other components and changes, we had to give this file a few updates. So this worked quite well. So let's start both the backend and frontend service to test our application. Let's run the command. Let's see if we get any issues. Probably, yes. The same issue with the port 5000. But let's see how Cline is handling this one. And if we have a look at a package.json, we can see that it's not using nodemon, right? No, it's using just node to run this. Okay. But whoa, this is nice. So it analyzed the error response inside of the API request and says, it seems port 5000 is already in use. Let's modify the backend server to use a different port. And we'll click save one more time. As you can see, it changed the port 5000 to port 5001 and also goes ahead into the API routes and change all of the places where we have used the port 5000. So we even have the index.html file, as you can see, because in the other examples, we always had to add this manually. So we have the index.html file, and we even have the index.csjs, or in this case, index.tsx file, because it's TypeScript, right? So as far as code quality goes and, well, just the overall handling of errors, I think I like Cline the most, but we'll see. Let's wait a few more seconds to see if we are able to, well, run the application after Cline fixed everything. So we'll try it one more time. Now we are running the database on port 5001. We probably have to run the front end manually. Let's see, is it already running? No. Okay, so let's have a look at package.json. We'll open a new terminal and we'll do npm start, I guess. Okay, so I guess it's the same problem as with the other ones, right? We are trying to run both the front end and the back end on one port. So I think the only thing we should need to do is to go inside of here and put the port equals 3001 here. And now if we do this, it still says it doesn't work. Okay, so let's do npm start. Okay, now it should work, hopefully. Okay, yeah. So the backend is running, and now we probably need to cd into the front end and do npm start again. Is that correct? Okay, yeah, this worked. Great. Now let's see. Do we get something? Yes, nice. Okay, we can use the dropdown. Can we even use the date picker? It does work too. Okay, so let's add our fries again. So we can't give a specific item a name. We can just choose the category. It still works. So as you can see here, we have food. We can also, I don't know, maybe do entertainment at expenses. So this works. The display is a little bit different. Okay, we have a stacked bar chart, so to speak. We can delete stuff on the front end. This works too. So let's open the terminal and let me quickly head over here. We want to make this a bit bigger so you guys can see. And now we want to go to the back end and we want to run SQLite 3 expenses. And we want to select everything from expenses. Don't forget the colon. Okay, so this works. We have entertainment, and if we go ahead and, I don't know, we add food and we run this command again. Nice. Okay, so this works. Let me quickly change back to myself. So to be honest, I'm not sure. So in terms of cost, I probably like Cline the most, Cline and IDEs, because really what you have to pay is only the API request. So if we head back over to VS Code, let me show you. So the complete project did cost us around 60 cents with Cline. Okay, so I haven't checked with IDEs, but I think it should probably be around the same, maybe around 50 to 70 cents. And if you guys prefer low cost, you should definitely check out Cline and IDEs. I mean, it's a bit, especially IDEs is a bit different, right? Because you only have the command line tool. You can't really click stuff and drag and drop it. So you don't really have a graphical user interface, so to speak, but you can still load the project into your favorite IDE like Cursor or VS Code after IDEs is done, and you can basically work with it in the same way. Now, as far as the code quality goes, I think I'm like Cline the most, because without telling it anything, it chose to work with TypeScript. It even went ahead, created all of the different interfaces. And just overall, if I look at the code quality and I compare the code quality of all 4 tools, I would say, at least in this example, Cline performed the best. Now, if you think differently, please let me know down in the comments. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.